Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to Viewpoints, FOV Ventures video podcast, where we interview on a variety of topics startups from across the world about their thoughts and ideas of the topics at hand. Today's topic that we're discussing is one that we've discussed quite a lot frequently, and I'm sure we'll have a healthy debate today. It's how AI is being used in the gaming industry these days. And without further ado, because they are the most important people today, I will introduce you to our guests. We have today Marie Gerard and Gordon Midwood from Scenario and from Anything World, respectively. My name is Tiago, and I'll be your host today. How are you both?
All good, all good. Thank you for inviting us.
Yeah, very well too. Thank you. Excited to chat.
Great. Well, look, I'm going to ask you to start with a quick introduction to yourselves and for the company that you represent. How about that?
Yeah, sure. I'm Marie Gerard. I'm the head of sales at Scenario. I'm part of the founding team, so joined Scenario early on. So I've been with them for about 2 years now. I am a heavy gamer, but also I enjoy seeing how tech and creativity can actually meet and how AI can power creatives throughout the industry. So yeah, that's about me.
So before we jump on to Gordon, actually, what is a game that you're enjoying playing lately?
Yeah, okay. So I can start saying like, okay, I've got my Switch everywhere. And so I for the moment, I'm very diving deep into Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. But I actually want to do a shout out to Villainous Game Studio. It's a small studio actually based in the UK. They are releasing a game that's called Harvest Hunt. It's actually perfect for Halloween because it's kind of like a horror survival game. Sticking point where you've kind of have got to avoid the devourer. So if you're looking for a game for Halloween, I've really enjoyed playing the prototype of Harvest Hunt. It's coming out in the next couple of weeks. So yeah, definitely recommend that.
Awesome. I like, Maria, how you're thinking quite thematically already. That's very impressive. Gordon, shall we move on to you?
Sure. Yeah. I'm also a gaming geek. Love gaming. Just need more time to do it. So I need to quit my job and spend a couple of years gaming, ideally. So yeah, I'm Gordon. I'm the co-founder of Anything World. We use AI to bring 3D models to life, and I've been doing that for about 4 years. Previously, worked for EA for a small amount of time before I got crunched to death, and made independent games. Love gaming. So really interesting in the intersection of AI and gaming in particular. And to follow up on Marie's gaming stuff, like Dave the Diver, I've been playing quite a lot recently. I don't know if you've tried that, but it's a lot of fun. And also a Rerunner, Choice Provisions made. I don't know if you've played like Runner 2, Runner 3. If you check out Bit Trip Rerunner, I've been playing that as well. So those are the games I've been playing recently.
I've heard of Dave the Diver, but not yet on it. Yet more games that I need to add to my list that I
exactly add it to your Steam list and never get around to playing them. That's what I do.
Exactly. So ever growing list. Okay. So you kind of started already going into a little bit, but I'd love to hear from both of you. What do your companies do? And of course, the topic is AI and gaming. So you're here because obviously you are doing something in that space, but tell everyone specifically what you guys are doing. Let's start again with Marie.
Yeah, so Scenario, we are building the first Gen AI engine for the gaming industry. So today we are enabling any gaming studio to train their own custom AI models based on their artistic vision. We've got a web application which is very artist orientated, so they can literally create thousands of assets that are very consistent to their vision and to the game style. And then we also have got an API. The API integrates directly into internal tools, external tools. So we've got a Unity plugin, but also we've got an Unreal plugin, which is coming very soon. But we also integrate directly into games. And I think that's where it becomes very interesting, because where we see games evolve and really looking to increase user stickiness, actually creating assets that are very consistent to the players and that are built to result players that you want to have into your game. That's where it becomes, I would say, even more powerful to really sort of pass down the vision onto the players, see what they can build, especially in large MMO worlds as well. I've seen a lot of those looking at how they could build guilds and factions and have them all generated by AI. I do find that definitely really fascinating. And that's what Scenario does today. We're enabling this vision to be brought to life.
That's awesome. I'm sure that we will definitely get into more detail on that. I certainly am curious about that. Gordon, how about you? So you take us through a little bit of Anything World as well?
Yeah, for sure. Many overlaps with Marie and Scenario. So we are Anything World, and we bring 3D models to life at scale using AI. So we use our own machine learning pipeline to rig and animate assets at scale, and then we make them available in Unity and Unreal. You can use our web APIs. Last week we launched a tool called Animate Anything, where you can upload your own model, and we'll automatically add a skeleton and animation to it. That's like a Mixamo, but for everything, or Mixamo on steroids, or crack, or whatever you want to call it. We have different internal code names. But yeah, we're trying to animate everything, make everyone a 3D content creator.
Yeah, I've played a lot with Mixamo as well, and I definitely need to get my hands into Anything World, because Mixamo is great, but it's very limited as well. So seeing that I can actually make it a lot more tailored to what I actually want my 3D characters to do, I think that is definitely very interesting. Yeah.
Cool. Got a customer already. Yeah, we're trying to animate everything. So Mixamo is for bipeds, humans, and all that kind of stuff. We have insects, quadrupeds, swimming things. So we're trying to be the AI animation engine for anything is what we're trying to be.
That's awesome. I mean, look, I think you've already started explaining a little bit more how you are both respectively taking advantage of what can only be described with a wide label of AI. But for a little bit more of the technical minded audience, can you give us a little bit more insight as to how you are leveraging AI quotation marks in your technology, how you're looking to leverage it in the future as you're seeing new developments come up in academia and research, etc.?
Yeah, sure. So today's Scenario, we are facilitating the creation of 2D assets. So 2D assets, we are running on Stable Diffusion, so 1.5, but also SDXL with LoRaWAN, which enables indeed to have a higher quality. And LoRaWANs are very interesting because they can be very much tailored to a specific artistic style, and they work a little bit more like palette instead of artists actually wanting to describe by text exactly what they want. It's more of layers of artistic styles, which I do find very interesting. We fine-tuning those models, so yes, with LoRaWAN, but also with Dreambrew, to basically focus only on what the art studios have got as assets. So we can focus on characters, we can focus on props, we can focus on backgrounds as well. 2D is great. It covers a part of the market, but obviously 3D is the holy grail in generative AI today, and especially the production of 3D assets at scale. So today we are looking at 3D solutions, for example, such as Shape E or Magic 123, which enables to do some text to 3D, but also to do some 2D to 3D. And that is the pipe that we are looking at. It's how also for a GPU consuming perspective, doing some 3D assets and then actually only selecting one to go into your game. It is very consuming. So actually doing some, training of your custom AI model, generating the 2D asset, really customizing that 2D asset for it to resemble your vision with, for example, the canvas, where you're like, hey, actually, I love Marie's hat, but, I don't want Scenario's logo. I want Anything World's logo on top of it. Okay, let's go and highlight this little logo and regenerate it. And then I don't want her to wear glasses. I want her to have tech wear glasses. So let's generate that. And so you're working with 2D. And then after that, once you've got your assets, you can actually bring it to 3D. We're looking obviously at animations as well. So we're looking at auto segmenting every single part of the 2D assets, where you can actually have the different arm. And this is the first step to animation, because you need first to segment every single part of a character, of a prop, and then afterwards do the animation. So yeah, and then for the 3D part, looking at Anything World, and I'm very curious to hear more of the tech that you are using, Gordon.
Thanks, Marie. Yeah, I definitely think a collaboration is coming down the pipe for sure for both of us. Hopefully we can do something cool together. So yeah, we at Anything World, we have a custom machine learning pipeline, 7 steps that takes any static model as its input and outputs a rigged and animated asset. And we can do that for loads of different categories, from insects through to bipeds, quadrupeds, all kinds of weird stuff. You wouldn't believe there are subcategories that we have, like thin-hooved mammal for one type of quadrupeds, squirmers, flies. It gets kind of crazy, and sometimes we have discussions about the weirdest kind of stuff, such as a pineapple walking upside down because we think it's an arachnid. So we get lots of weird ML generated results. But yeah, that's the core of the company, is 7-step machine learning pipeline. That's our own code that takes any static 3D model in theory and can understand it, generate a skeleton for it, and then map animations onto it. And we're upping the quality of that all the time, upping the quality of the rigs, the quality of the animations, adding control rigs. And so we're doing all that stuff. And yeah, as said, last week we launched a service called Animate Anything, so you can upload your own models. We have asset libraries. We have tens of thousands of animated assets that are available in Unity and Unreal. So that's what we're trying to do, animate everything in 3D. And upcoming, I guess, similar to Marie, we're going to look at synthetic generation of 3D models as well. At the moment, current state of the art is cool in a little GIF, but not quite usable, not quite game ready yet. It's missing faces, vertices, etc. But yeah, we are definitely looking to open source solutions for people to generate 3D models and then have them animated with anything worlds. At the moment, we also have text and voice-based creation systems. So you can say, make a city and add 20 helicopters and we'll generate that for you. But that's based on pre-animated assets that have been through our pipeline. We don't have anything genuinely synthetic yet, creation of those 3D objects. So we're going to look at that next. But yeah.
Now, I think that's kind of in line with what he mentioned as well. So, both your questions were, or both your answers were very much around, this is what we're doing. We'd love to start expanding onto this area, but it might not be currently ready yet for whatever reason, X, Y, and Z. So I actually am very much interested in that particular part of the discussion. So I want to understand why things are not ready yet. So for that, I need to understand a little bit more how game developers, game designers, and other are using your technology right now, and then what are the shortcomings that they're finding so far, so that when you start looking at the future, you can think about what's missing still.
Yeah, I mean, not quite ready yet. It all depends indeed on where studios want to place generative AI within their workflows. So I think generative AI is today being used from ideation to pre-prod to prod to post-prod to marketing as well. So when you're looking, for example, at 3D assets, okay, why is it not used yet? Well, first we've got to look at the platform where it needs to be released. Okay, if it's a mobile game, for example, okay, low polys does work, and actually generative AI can generate more easily low polys or where the quality is not so needed. But indeed, for a AAA game or for a hyper realistic kind of 3D render, no, it's not there yet. The meshes are very rough. You would need a 3D artist to go and edit it. The textures as well can be terrible, even though UV unwrapping today in 3D is pretty good. Normal maps generation as well is pretty good as well. But I would say the meshes are still very actually it's not really, the quality is not there yet. Where we are seeing today studios using scenario, anywhere from ideation to marketing. So ideation, okay, we want to do I don't know, a neopunk version of the game that we've released 3 years ago. We revisiting previous IP. Let's see how we can quickly mock up a new idea, see how the characters will look like, and basically edit on top of that. That works great. Then production of the assets. How can we refine those assets? How can we upscale them as well? How can we create those different layers? For example, if we're creating a 2D game and actually have those artists working on the production, so it's very much controlled, and the output can be overpainted as well. Let's be honest, today 2D works as well, but then for legal reasons, and we can touch upon that in a second, but it might need as well some overpainting from artists. And if Scenario can produce 60% to 70% of production ready assets and have only 40 to 30% of artists needing an overpaint on those assets, then I think it's already a win for studios. On the marketing side and sort of post-prod as well, what we are seeing is hey, there's a crucial need for localization. We've released a game, but I don't know, we want to export it in, I don't know, a country in which basically there's a very strong culture, or I don't know, they can't drink from cans, for example. How can we replace all cans by bottles? All of that we can actually automate as well within the pipeline. And that's how we are seeing studios having the first approach to AI, because marketing can be a little bit more permissive, and also marketing does need a lot of assets and needs also seasonal assets. Halloween's coming. Okay, how can we turn our whole sort of game, because we're based on mobile, with a Halloween theme? So that's what we are seeing too. But we are still very early on. I think generative AI, there's being a massive praise and haze, and And since early this year, we've seen a lot of people being positioned on it, and studios also looking at how they could be integrating within their workflows. And I think today it's more a question of like, okay, validating where that can fit into the workflows, where they are, gaining sometimes as well. And so we are really sort of like pushing for that validation of the adoption of generative AI within those workflows with the artists directly with them. And that's why we've got a whole customer success team actually sitting with them and be like, okay, what's the game? When does it need to be released? Is it 6 months? Is it 18 months? Is it 5 years? Because it's a AAA. Let's look at it. So yeah.
I think you've talked a lot about very interesting points. A few that we'll definitely cover, hopefully, a little bit later. So, the legal issues is definitely something that I want to engage a little bit with you on. Certainly, you've started briefly going into what my next question would be, which is around you're already seeing that some benefits are being yielded by those who use it. So I'll ask you specifically afterwards a little bit more on that. But you also mentioned something that I think is oft forgotten, which is when we talk about AI in gaming, we just think of game design, game development, and we disregard a very important function, which is marketing, right? Maybe because it is more universal to other industries, but marketing is a very true and important part of gaming and the gaming industry. And so if your technologies are there and are ready and are available to deliver some results already for that function, that is already a benefit that you're providing to the gaming industry. So thank you for remembering that and for mentioning that. That was an interesting one. Gordon, over to you. Same question.
Cool. Yeah, I agree with the marketing stuff. I was lucky enough to go and see Disney in LA a couple of weeks ago, and there was a few people there, one from animation, and people, they want fantastical creatures, super high resolution, rigged and animated, which are not quite ready yet. But there was a couple of representatives from marketing there as well who were like, yeah, we use Unreal Engine and we can use this right now. So I think it's an important point because we're all in gaming, not to get too, maybe not blindsided, but too obsessed with the highest fidelity of outputs for the latest AAA game. If you look at like the casual games market, it's massive. It's billions, isn't it? So we shouldn't, just because the resolution is low or the games are simpler, we shouldn't neglect mobile or marketing or anything like that. Strive for perfection when like 80% of the audience doesn't even need it. But yeah, for us, in terms of like who's using us, so we just launched our Animate Anything service last week. So we're seeing like more users this month than we've ever had, and a lot of throughput. So it's great. So it's obviously a service that people need, particularly on rigging, as you mentioned, Marie. Nobody likes rigging. So if you can take that pain away from people, I liken it to flossing your teeth. You can do it once or twice, but after that, you don't really enjoy it. You just got to get through it. I don't like flossing my teeth. I don't know if it's a good analogy. Yeah, so that's what we're doing. And then like our currently available products are available in Unity and Unreal, and that's where most of our users are. We have almost 19,000 users now using Anything World. And there's a few cool indie games coming that people are building. So in Unity and Unreal, if you want to go to Anything World and download our package, do a little plug, you can just select, you can like search in a panel for whatever you want. We'll bring it into the scene and bring it to life, add some behaviors to it as well. You can do that in code too. And we're starting to see indie game developers make some really cool games whereby users can request whatever they want during a game and then play with it or throw it at stuff, battle with it, and create puzzles out of it. So there's a notion of, which I've always been excited about with what we're doing, because I'm a game design geek, this notion of emergent game design where you set up some rules, add different objects or different qualities to it, and new behaviors arise. So I don't know if you know a game called Typing of the Dead Overkill. Have you ever played that one? Marie, you ever played that?
No.
Yeah, I've heard about it, but I have never played it.
Yeah, it's a Sega game. I think it originally launched on the Dreamcast. I'm not sure. In any case, you're like it's a zombie game where you're like an on-rails camera and you type in, the zombie comes out and you type like kill or stab or bomb, and then the action happens. So Choice Provisions, who are based out of Santa Cruz, they made a rerun of that game I mentioned earlier, which everyone should check out. They're making a version of that game built on Anything World. Not to give too much away, but you go through these zombie scenes and it says, spell a 5-letter word or a word ending in N, and then it brings stuff from our platform like live, and it animates and it flies in and it kills the zombies, and it's very stupid and very hilarious. And so we're seeing a wave of like indie games like that built on us now, which is just going to come out at the end of this year. So I would say that's our dominant use case now, is for like quirky, funny games that are a bit different, procedural environments, UGC, stuff like that. And what's upcoming, I think, is more and more people using us to animate their own assets. But that only launched last week, so that's nascent, to use a clever word.
I've got a question actually, if you don't mind, Tiago, because I think there's like something that you mentioned, which is like actually generating real time, and that makes a definition as well of an engine. Is that something that you are able to achieve today? I know I'm asking the question because for us, scenario is the generation of asset we can get like seconds, but sub-seconds is very hard. And I think like, the technology still has to come a bit further down the line. But I think like, having real-time generation or real-time rigging as well is something that is coming closer and closer. And I mean, that's how I see it, but you might be doing it today. So I'm just curious about that.
Yeah, no, I think all that stuff's coming. And as you mentioned, the quality of assets in 3D, I think 2D does great stuff. Like your stuff in 2D is great and usable right now, but 3D, I think it's coming, isn't it? Like the mesh is 6, 9, 12 months away. It's definitely coming. But we don't do real-time rigging and animation. That takes a couple of minutes. That takes 1, 2, 3 minutes. You go to our site like Mixamo and you upload it, it generates a rig, you correct it, then you go to the animation stage. So it takes a couple of minutes to rig and animate an asset using our platform at the moment. That will only get quicker. But what we have is like tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of pre-animated assets that have been through our pipeline. So that's what's being requested. So if you ask for a cake, that'll be a static asset. We can bring one of 100 cakes in and you can throw out the zombie. If you ask for a butterfly, it can flap in. So they are assets that we've taken from, Sketchfab, Google Poly, Free 3D models, Objiverse, Omniverse, whatever it's called, those massive model sources. So that's what's been our product so far is Creative Commons mixable assets. And then we're going to get onto licensing and stuff later. Community created assets that we brought to life at scale and then make available to people in game engines. That's our dominant use case today. And that's what these games are using. So we're not rigging and animating on the fly. We pre-process them through our pipeline, if that makes sense. On the fly still takes a couple of minutes. But yeah, it will only get quicker and it will only get better. So yeah, one day.
So you're kind of leading us off to the last part of this podcast. I know that we're going to enter the last 10 minutes of this. And before we get on to more broader stuff outside of your company's respective technologies, definitely I want to understand a little bit more about how much have you quantified or how much you've been able to identify that there are verifiable benefits for those who are using your technology. And that's what I think is often dreamed about, particularly by VCs, right? The benefits, but it's better to hear from you guys as to what you are seeing your users say are the benefits. How much are they benefiting in that, and where are they benefiting?
So I think there's a couple of parts where obviously generative AI can benefit. So actually, if I'm still thinking of like the game pipeline, is actually something that takes a lot of time. You as an artist, you start by a mood board, you're kind of like discussing, shifting, sort of like building the lore as well. And so actually being able to dramatically sort of like increase that, but also help game studios, like most of the time as well, they are trying to get published with like a prototype, for example, or they're trying to get published just on a simple deck where they're saying like, hey, this is going to be the character, this is going to be the lore. So basically invest in our game, we want to be published. Being able to really quickly enable those studios to ideate, to build their deck, and then to get that funding or to get this like publishing signature is very important. So leading up to the prototype, actually, we do accompany quite a lot of studio in that phase because we are very much aware that studios are always like short on time, short on like resources as well. And actually having this time to actually have a functional prototype is very key. So we accompany them and actually like integrating scenario into it, especially when it comes to the API. So integrating it with like Unreal or Unity or integrate it directly into the game. That's what we are, getting at with those studios. And we can see that already in the ideation phase leading up to a functioning prototype, we can accelerate the pipeline by at least like 60%. And that is the sweet spot where we're trying to get at because, okay, it's cool. I can use, for example, Midjourney, but a Midjourney is never going to be like consistent to my artistic direction as well. And Midjourney has got some issues when it comes to legality too.
And Maki, maybe let me just further. No, I want to refine a little bit more. Have you been able to, in that particular part of the process, able to identify with those studios that you partner with savings in time or savings in cost or anything that allows us to start realizing, here are a quantifiable set of benefits that your technology can introduce? If you have, I mean, you might not. That's why I'm asking.
Yeah. Yes, we have. We are working, and I'm thinking of a particular Canadian studio where they basically contacted us a couple of months back, and they were like, hey, we've got this kind of like crazy idea. We want something that is like, complete customizable for like our users. But then we kind of like we have an idea of like what our game might be look like, but then we are not quite sure yet. So we want actually to start ideating based on those like ideas and references, what the art direction should be. And so we have really helped in sort of like, okay, ideating the style with them where they could integrate it. And actually we are in that way to like having a prototype which is working, and they are integrating the API directly, because it's kind of like an investigation kind of game where you have to like go through like different kind of like murder scenes, and then sort of like find different objects as well, and every single object is unique based on the players sort of like inputs. I can't say much more than that, but we have been really much able to accelerate that pipeline and help them actually get the funding from the Canadian government as well, because they were able to generate those images a lot faster, and they were able to protect themselves with the integration of AI. But that's not the only way where we've helped studios. We've also helped them. I'm thinking of a larger German mobile studio, which I can't name yet, but where we've helped them as well with the production of assets. So they need different types of like portraits for the game. They all need to be different, and they all need like hundreds of thousands of them. And they've integrated scenario in the pipeline today to be able to basically generate those portrait and then overpay them. And they have arrived at that sweet spot of like, hey, scenario is automating 60% of it versus a Midjourney, which is like roughly around 40 to 50%. It's cool. Like, we can prompt like nice stuff. We can do some in painting as well, but it's not really fitting, the control that we want to have on those assets. And then scenarios like more around 60, and then the 40% is like literally overpainting. So we have a use case on the integration inside of the product production. And then finally as well, we're working with like a much larger game studio, which basically is like a Web3 kind of like game that they are developing, and they're looking for like assets which are retracing previous IPs. And basically Scenario is enabling them to create like millions of assets in 3 seconds that are like retracing those IPs. And so like indeed, like Scenario is enabling to like have like more stickier users as well when it comes to like, okay, integration within the game. So so we are seeing those benefits already. We're trying to constantly like improve like our outputs. That's why we've got SEXL, which is, very much recent update where we upping the quality. So there's like lesser of a need to sort of like review those images and potentially like adjust the lighting as well. It's much more controllable with like LoRa's, for example, which, work like those like different kinds of like filters. So so that's what we are seeing a phantom of use case without actually naming too much.
Yeah, that's great. No, that's exactly what I wanted to hear. And thank you for giving me some actual comparables as well versus solutions out there which are less refined than yours for the game industry, a little bit more blunt in their approach. Gordon, how about you? I think I've seen in the past some examples of how you mentioned that there's time savings and potentially cost savings in introducing your technology. So I'd love to hear a little bit more about that here.
Yeah, so for our current library of AI animated assets, we have partners who say we save like 40, 50% of the time in the production of a game. Indeed, our friends at Warner Music, a Viper, they're the internal agency, quote a figure around 40 to 50%. They make games on us in like 4 weeks that otherwise might take, 8 to 10 weeks, small web games. So yeah, using our library of assets and using their animations can save you a lot of time. We have a lot of people do like a mix and match sort of use case. So they have their IP. We're working with the Ubisoft Rabbids, for example. They have their IP that dominates a game, and then they use this for butterflies, birds, fish, pets. Incidentals around the games is also a valuable use of our platform. So yeah, I mean, 40 to 50% of the time in developing a 3D game is kind of what we quote as a typical like game saving. And then for our new service, like rigging and animating stuff, the cost savings are even higher. So, I mean, it depends about how much time you would take or what the cost of your internal or external resources. But to rig and animate a model in a day is pretty good. And so, you're looking at $100, $200. And we do that at the most expensive for $1. Everyone gets 3 free credits a month. And then if you buy a credit pack, you get cheaper things. part of that psychological pricing thing. So, for 30 cents, we can rig and animate a model that would otherwise cost you at least $100. So the cost saving there is clear. And then we're also going forward exposing like enterprise APIs, well, APIs for everyone really, where you can fire like 1,000 models at us and we'll deliver them back rigged and animated to you within your game, within your platform. Think of people like Epic, Sandbox, UEFN, these larger platforms, and everybody's platform, rigging in particular is a blocker. So if we can deliver that service at scale, then the savings there, it says at 80 to 90% or something. It just basically saves you the cost of rigging. You can eliminate it from your pipeline, at which point, we'll all be fabulously rich.
Fingers crossed. So I think that given the very concrete use cases as well as numbers, I mean, it's important to also present a fair discussion in this topic, right? It's not like everyone is using all of these technologies. And by the way, when I say now these technologies, I'm opening up to the broader sense of what is the label of AI in the gaming space, not necessarily just scenario in anything world. So why aren't game developers and game designers automatically using these technologies? We've mentioned a few of them, right? So sometimes some game profiles might not be at a threshold of the quality demand that these technologies can hit. We've also, a few of the reasons, like for example, legal. I definitely would love to hear what you are hearing from the market as to why are the reasons that technologies in the broad bucket that is AI aren't being adopted as fast as everyone wants them to be, or at least the VCs want them to. And then there are indeed some reservations, cautious behaviors from game developers, game designers, lawyers, and so many other actors in the game industry. Let's start with Marie again.
So basically there's indeed like a couple of blockers. First of all, like when it comes to like the creation of assets, we are decisions for like adopting generative AI like is sometimes done at a higher level and not at the artist level, where the artist level can be considered as the operator, for example. So they are the ones that will be touching the web app, and artists have got ridiculously high standards because they're ridiculously talented. So they are expecting, if they are integrating an AI, to do at least as good as them, if not better.
Isn't that the promise, yeah, right? I mean, I think that the promise is that we'll be able to deliver stuff which is going to be able to put your mind into paper just like that, right? And sometimes it falls a little bit short of that.
Yeah, I mean, it's artists don't need to be there because the AI needs to be trained on like an artistic and creative mind. And so if everybody was like kind of like just inputting prompt and then like the machine like basically spits out what you've got in your mind, well, first you need to learn how to speak to it, which is potentially a skill set that you need to learn, which is not always obvious. But then like second of all as well is that the AI would always learn in retrospective from like what human has been creating. And so you definitely need an artist if you want your game to be different from the others. And by the way, I kind of like need to validate the hypothesis that I'm going to see a lot more, cartoon-based, highly stylized, like Silence of the Lamb, for example, games being put out there just as like a kind of like pushback to AI, like, hey, look, everything's been hand-drawn and like everything is like very unique, like you can't do it on the any side. But no, like, yes, the premise of AI is like, yeah, we are being able to train AI models which are like meeting the artist and are sort of like there to support them and never replace them. And actually from a legal standpoint as well, which is one of the blockers that we're having. But when you look at like the Copyright Office in the US, they are saying that basically an artist needs to be there as an input and as an output. Okay, so you need like enough alteration to the image to basically being recognized and like copyrighted. So what we are trying to do as scenario is prove that first a fine tune train on assets that have been drawn, that have been painted by artists, can be recognized, can be copyrighted, and can be potentially IP'd as well. But that is part of the challenge because still, like, governments need to have like a standpoint on, what AI is, the use of AI is stable diffusion a gray zone or is stable diffusion a commodity? Because my personal opinion is that it will probably become a commodity, and then yes, it has been trained on like, thousands of artwork, but let's be honest, like, artists, the first thing that you learn as an artist is like, you should be able to steal like an artist. And I was doing art and I was like, doing like 3D models and sculpture. Let's be honest, I was like going on Vimeo and I was like screenshotting things on Vimeo and like building my own like sort of like mood boards. Didn't sort of like refrain me to get a like degree and like to get like a very good score in it, but I still like an artist. Um so basically I think that that is like one of the blockers is like, okay, quality needs to be very important. Regularization and like sort of like a legal stance on like where AI can be used and how it should be used is crucially important. But I think it's going to evolve like quite dramatically as well in the next coming months. And that's my trail forward, but I think I've said quite a lot.
No, that's awesome. That's a deep dive on the legal piece, which is always an important one. And I don't think anyone would know more than both of you who are in the field talking to these folks. Gordon, what's your view?
Yeah, I agree. Definitely quality. Quality is obviously because it's a startup problem, isn't it? To promise the moon and then deliver a short trip to the edge of the solar or to the edge of the atmosphere or something. Sorry, my analogy broke. I was halfway through it there. So yeah, quality is definitely like over promising, under delivering. I think is definitely a thing that's going to get better. But I think one thing that we shouldn't underestimate, especially in the larger companies, is like developer inertia. Developers are quite hard to get to adopt new tools. They see a lot of, I'm sure if I'm allowed to swear on a podcast, but they see a lot of rubbish being thrown at them. This tech's going to revolutionize this. This is it. This is the future of this. And they're quite a hard crowd because they're quite technically savvy to sell to, because they'll be like, exactly what is it? How does it help me? What are the benefits? And also, especially with the larger gaming companies, there's inertia to do the pipeline. We have an established pipeline. We've made 3 Assassin's Creed games and we know exactly how to make the animations look fluid. So to get them to adopt a new workflow within their pipeline is hard, especially given the large.
Gordon, do you mind me pushing? I'm going to push you on that. I have to give a little bit more credit to game developers because they have been using new technology when it comes out for a while, right? But I agree that there is a little bit of developer inertia. But do you think that it comes mostly from that we have an established pipeline? Why should we, change it? Or is it more the first piece that you mentioned, right? That that. Is this really going to revolutionize my world? Because what you're promising is maybe just the moon, and what you're delivering is just a little bit of a lift off, right?
Yeah. First of all, I am a game developer, so I'm being mean to myself, so it's allowed. You can be yourself and your kind. So
you are allowed. Then
I'm allowed to be with myself. So yeah, I mean, of course, the first part plays an element, and obviously, everyone's interested in emerging technologies. How they can. I think as soon as you start to take away a problem, like I don't like doing this, and this does it for me, or in an automated way, that's quite an easy sell. But if it's a new way to create, if it's quite disruptive, it can take a while to filter through to the larger studios. The smaller, like what we're seeing, indie devs, casual game devs are very keen to adopt emergent stuff and try new things. But the larger the organization, the more inertia there is. We found, I'll give you an analogy from when I used to make games, made like the second Unity game, myself and Sebi, my co-founder, who you know very well, Tiago. We made a game called Derek the Deathfin, an underwater papercraft game. It was the second Unity game to be made for PlayStation 3, and we worked with a company in Sheffield with like a really like old school programmer. It was the first time he'd used Unity. This was a long time ago. I'm old. It was like 15 years ago, 16 years ago. The first thing he did in the Unity game engine is take all of the settings out and put them in a text file and load that in. And it's like you're working against the technology that's been made available to you because it's what you're used to. And maybe it's a bad example, but I think there is a little bit of that goes on. But I don't want to be too dismissive because I am a game developer and I understand that part of it is the wave of stuff that you get crashing on your shores as a larger studio. This will revolutionize this. You should try this. You should try, and maybe being burnt from stuff that doesn't deliver what they promise has made them retrench a bit. So I think there are definitely barriers to break down with the larger studios, but obviously they're adopting it as well en masse. And I think what we will see is people using AI to like accelerate their processes, whether it's animation of a character, using AI to get to a base and then having humans finesse and finish it off. I think that's what we will see. I think that's what we'll start in music as well. Film, gaming is no different. AI will help and will generate stuff and make things at scale that are not possible, but humans will be there to provide the final finesse of the specific animation or provide the input into the musical track or whatever it might be. So I think that's what we'll see going forward, yeah, in my opinion.
Great. Okay. We are really coming up to the last few minutes of this podcast. So I'll just do one concluding question and then we can break. So as I mentioned before, I really want to hear what is exciting you the most about the developments that are happening in this space. So that's particularly AI in and for game development. And you can be as expansive as you want, but I'll remind you that we have a little bit of time left. So if we can be brief and concise, that'd be great. So why don't we try and switch around for the last question? Gordon, you go first.
Yeah, I think that what's exciting is like enabling creativity for people that would otherwise be locked out of it. So AI lowers the barrier to creating movies, imagery, 3D worlds, and enables new possibilities. We always had a dream of a game that's completely generative. So the narratives generated, stories generated, 3D worlds are generated. I think we're going to experience some amazing things that are beyond the bounds of what we can conceive at the moment, thanks to the power of AI. So I think we'll have some amazing gaming experiences to enjoy. That's my concise answer.
Marie?
Yeah, you should look at Echoes of Time. It's a game that has been created by Juicy. I don't know if you've heard about it. It's like fully AI generated. Definitely look at it. It's amazing. Banned from Steam, but Juicy's holding like a blog where he's like explaining what he does and then and everything. I've got 15 seconds left. So I'm going to say that I'm extremely excited by all the indie devs that are basically going to come up with like a very unique game. Just like how they can integrate like generative AI in the pipeline. It really is going to accelerate it, but also is going to push bigger studios to basically take more risks. And I'm very much looking forward to see that. So yeah, being short and very much aligned with Gordon.
I was going to ask when is the time horizon for both of your things, but he just said that, Gordon, your is already available today. So don't need to wait for the future. Okay. Marie, Gordon, I want to thank you again for coming on to the Viewpoints podcast. I believe Ventures, thank you both. And I want to thank you for your time and thank you all to the listeners. So thank you and we'll see you next time. Thank you again.